all of the letters, I think we just got a letter wrong because all of the letters, if we put them in a different order, P, E, M, B, R, O, and then we just have a B instead of a K. So maybe we messed up and we put an extra B instead of a K, and it says Pembroke.
That's what it says.
Pembroke? Really?
You called?
Is it on
No. Well,
I think we cracked the case.
I think you all did. Congratulations. So, you all just figured out that Blake Pembroke is our Jack out of the box.
I'm still just shocked that Pembroke is Jack of the Box.
Wait, so Jack out of the box doesn't automatically mean that they're the murderer?
Nope.
oh,
It could be one of the murderers.
no, I did not murder anybody, but it was so funny seeing your face, Austin. I don't know why you're so surprised that I'm just so much better than you, that I am Jack in the Box. It's been a really fun time, but I mean, I just thought I'd let you guys know.
Don't worry about it. Blake, truly don't worry about it, because I'm going to get to be the one who tells the world who Jack in the Box is, so.
All right.
Well, let's talk about the murderers.
Do we remember who has had the murder weapons that we know of? Because I thought I saw a poison vial between Sylvan and Avery, and I know that they both had a handle on the knife. So those are my characteristics. And they were both early to the party, so they could have had time to poison Vincent. No, I'm sorry. Cavish.
Guys, we do have a forensic report. We can look at that, and that can help us a lot. For example, Danny Robux touched everything, is on every part of this report, and has a very strong voice. Just pointing that out.
Okay, well, before you mentioned that, I was actually going to bring up the fact that does this have to be one person? Because we know that the person who used the poison had to come early. I did not come early. I came right on time.
Working with Danny.
So if it has to be, if it's two different people, then that opens other possibilities. But so it can be more than one person. Then in that case, we know that the person who did the poison has to be one of the ones who came early, which narrows it down to those four.
One all of us.
And guys, we also know that Blake Pembroke is the Jack in the Box, so that means that she also had motive, among other things, to kill them. And we know that she was in the kitchen, and we know that she had access to the poison.
I never did like Blake.
I would also like to say that I touched the knife. I did do that. It was falling off of the table, guys. I mean, what do you expect? I'm classy, and I wasn't just gonna let it hit the floor. So I just moved the knife a little bit, kept it on the table. Yeah. So I did arrive early, and I did move the knife, so I am on that as well.
It also says your fingerprints were on the victim's glass that had the poison in it.
But if we remember from who was in the study, because that's where if whoever was in the study would have had easy access to the kitchen to get the knife. So therefore they would have been able to kill, because the body was found in the study, right?
As for the poisoning, it says that it was with cyanide there. And Ven was the one who was in the dining hall before the party where the cyanide was.
My theory for the poisoning is it was a joint poisoning between Blake and Vin. Vin was the one with the access to the cyanide. Blake had all the motive, and Blake's fingerprints were on everything. So
I also, wait, hold on. I agree with Emerald because I saw Vincent talking with Ven and one other person, and I forgot who said it, but someone said that they saw Ven talking with Blake. And so maybe the three of them were talking with Vincent, so that leaves Blake and Ven. I have reason to believe that they are the murderers.
Okay, who has
Norwegian London.
I do not. I don't have any pets.
That was Vincent's. Like the hair, those dog hairs, they were found on Vincent. So the people that have the hairs on them, Blake and Syl, they had the same hairs that Vincent had on his body.
Oh.
And to go more into the whole Vincent situation, both Vin and Blake's finger and Danny's fingerprints were on both, and mine, of course, but like, anyway. I would just like to say with my fingerprints, I'm the assistant manager. I am very present in this club, so my fingerprints are going to be almost everywhere.
I believe that the poisoning was done by Blake and Vin, and the stabbing was done by Sylvian and Avery.
I think the poisoning was done by Blake and Vin, and I feel like the knife thing, that was done by Danny and Blake.
I believe that I might have been involved in the poisoning alongside Vin, but I do not think that I stabbed anyone, as I hate blood and the color of it, so I believe that Avery stabbed. Well, yeah, did the stabbing.
I agree with Blake Pembroke. I believe that Blake and Vin tag teamed the poisoning, but I do not think that Blake did the stabbing. So I think that Emerald Bonnevic stabbed him.
I think that Blake and Ven poisoned one of the wow, what's the word for victim? Thank you. Thank you. And Danny stabbed the other victim. However, all three of them are working together.
I think that Vincent and Alcott killed each other.
As the others were saying, I think that Blake and Vin tag teamed this elaborate poisoning of Alcott. Thank you very much, both of you. And for the murder of Vincent, I think Sylvan is the suspect.
I believe that Ben did the poisoning, and I believe that Blake had the knife.
I believe that Blake did the poisoning. And for the killing, I believe that Sylvan and Avery were involved.
I think Blake and Vin did the poisoning, and then Danny did the stabbing.
I would say that Blake and Vin did do the poisoning, and then Avery probably did the stabbing.
I think that it was Ven and Blake that did the poisoning, and Avery that did the stabbing.
Well, I'm ready for a vacation after this one, but I'm glad we sorted it out and found the killers. I hope you'll be kind to me with your blog articles, Blake Pembroke, or shall I call you Jack? I'm just a hardworking homicide detective, you know. I believe I did a great job on this case, even if I resorted to getting civilian assistance. Oh, and Blake Jack, my officers found your cameras. You were right, you didn't catch anyone in the act, but the footage does help to rule out suspects nevertheless. For the murder of Alcott Cavendish, my officers will be taking Vin Dormer into custody for slipping a lethal amount of cyanide into his drink. Avery Chadwick and Sylvan Radcliffe, you two would have gotten away with killing Vincent Archibald if you just hadn't got those pesky little dog hairs on you, Sylvan. And next time you two try to murder someone, don't let anyone see you conspiring out in the open. It's been a pleasure working with you all, till we meet again. And judging by your characters, we will most likely meet again.
So Blake is Jack out of the box, the anonymous blogger. Since Blake knew there were cameras all throughout the club, it's highly unlikely that Blake would be so foolish to try to kill anyone with digital evidence. Even though it didn't record the actual crimes being committed, it's still too risky. Blake didn't have access to cyanide during the party, so they are ruled out for Alcott's murder. Also, Blake didn't have study carpet fibers or a motive for Vincent's murder. Blake didn't have a dog hair transferred from Vincent, but Blake admits to shaking Vincent's hand upon arrival at the party, and that is how the one dog hair was transferred. Vin Dormer killed Alcott Cavendish. Per challenge number 1, Vin was in the dining hall where there was a display of cyanide. As soon as the group entered the war room, when the party started, Vin went straight to the bar. Vin took the vial and poured it on top of Alcott's ice in the war room right before Alcott made a drink. He died 3 minutes after making a drink and drinking it. Alcott was the only one who used ice in his beverage, so it was known that the ice bucket at the bar belonged to Alcott. Vin chronologically couldn't have stabbed Vincent, as they were in the war room poisoning the ice at the same time Vincent was stabbed in the study. Vin touched the knife as it had been placed on the table in the war room. Okay. Danny was in the billiard hall when Vincent was stabbed. Danny didn't have access to cyanide, so they couldn't have poisoned Alcott. Sylvan stabbed Vincent with a knife that Avery stole from the kitchen. Sylvan is ruled out as a suspect in Alcott's murder because they didn't have access to cyanide and didn't have access to the victim's beverage glass. Sylvan also had no excuse for 2 dog hairs from the victim to be transferred unless they had contact. Sylvan said they snubbed the victim upon arrival and claimed to have never been within 5 feet of him. So then, how would 2 dog hairs transfer to Sylvan without any contact, yet 1 dog hair transferred to a person who admittedly shook the victim's hand? Also, the fact that the victim is lacking dog hairs shows he didn't have many on him to transfer, which makes the probability of contact between Sylvan and Vincent even more likely. Vin does back up Sylvan in the fact that Sylvan couldn't have retrieved the knife from the kitchen, as Vin saw Sylvan in the war room up until the time Vincent was stabbed. Vin was speaking with Vincent until he was attacked in the study. Okay? Emerald didn't have access to cyanide, so they are ruled out with Alcott's murder. For Vincent's murder, Emerald didn't have a motive and didn't have fingerprints on the knife. Avery slipped into the kitchen by walking through the study soon after arriving to the party. Vin sees Avery walking into the study. Blake sees Avery leave the kitchen to return to the study, but can't remember who the person was. It was Avery. Therefore, Avery stole the knife from the kitchen that was later found in Vincent's chest. Avery discovered the victim as he stumbled into the war room after being stabbed. Avery pulled out the knife from the victim's chest in a panic, but only did that to cause confusion and for the excuse of why Avery's fingerprints would later be found on the weapon. Avery claims to have placed the knife on a table beside the victim, but Danny rushed into the war room upon hearing Avery fake scream and never saw anyone touch the weapon on the table after Avery placed it there. Avery is ruled out on Alcott's murder, as Avery doesn't have a motive to kill Alcott. Also, Avery didn't have access to cyanide. Dracian didn't have access to cyanide, so they are ruled out with Alcott's murder. Dracian is ruled out on Vince's murder because of not having fingerprints on the weapon and not having a motive. Carmi didn't have access to cyanide, so they are ruled out with Alcott's murder. Carmi is ruled out on Vince's murder because of not having fingerprints on the weapon and not having a motive. Florian didn't have access to cyanide, so they are ruled out with Alcott's murder. Florian had a motive to kill both victims, but for Vincent's murder, there were no fingerprints on the knife and no fibers from the study. So, Austin, Murphy, and Lennon did not have access to cyanide, so they are ruled out with Alcott's murder. For Vincent's murder, there were no fingerprints on the knife and no fibers from the study.